Also, I want y'all to understand that if y'all have not been told that you're loved, I am expressing it to you right now. Because I'm never, ever, ever going to take for granted the people that hold me down and show love. Never, ever gonna take y'all for granted. Y'all show up every day. I try to make sure that I add value, entertain y'all, and then ultimately give you the game on how it is that you can level up. If you're not a part of the Patreon, the link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. We always doing great things inside of the Patreon, and I can't wait to meet y'all when I go down to Houston on the 27th, all right? Let's get to it. So, I know that y'all think that I forgot, but I didn't. I did not. Government Cheese says these female district attorneys are acting like the new mob. Interesting. You know who I ran into yesterday? Kim Worthy. For my people that's over here in Detroit and in Michigan, in the Metro Detroit area, I ran into Kim Worthy, right? And I just so happened to ran into her, and I'll tell you how I ran into her before we get into this new round of debit cards conversation. Rita was like, oh man, I'm about to go get breakfast here. As soon as you get off the Millionaire Morning Show, come and meet me here. I'm already order your food or whatever. And so we wound up going up to the Hudson Cafe on Woodward. So you know I'm always in the streets. I rode my bike, zoom, 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 up Woodward. And so, you know, I stopped at the ATM, went into the restaurant, went to go wash my hands, and I seen Kim Worthy. And Kim Worthy is, here, let me get her title right. Kim Worthy is the Wayne County prosecutor, and she's been the Wayne County prosecutor in Michigan, went to the University of Michigan, University of Notre Dame, and Notre Dame Law School, Wayne County prosecutor in Michigan since 2004. And so I walked up to her and I was having a conversation with her, and, you know, I interrupted what she was talking about with another police officer. And I said, man, yes, my bike does zoom, zoom. Quentin, don't you do it. Attorney Kim Worthy, that's correct. She's the Wayne County prosecutor. And I walked up to her and I said, Miss Worthy, how are you doing today? She said, oh, hey, how you doing? She said she recognized me from seeing my show and stuff like that. And so, I appreciate you. I said, would it be too much for me to ask of you in your office to get an hour or two of your time so that I can sit down and deep dive with you and ask you some questions, not just questions with regard to what you do for a living and what's happening in the prosecutor's office, but also I want to get your opinion on what's happening across the nation, including what's happening over in Georgia, Fulton County, and all of this stuff. And she said, Anton, I'd love to. So for you guys that are bag chasers, and I'm not sure if I'm going to release this publicly, maybe I'll just drop it on the Anton Daniels channel. For you guys, I plan on having some more in-depth conversations. I have a lot of people that I'm doing interviews with, that I'm deep diving with, and I'm going in a different direction in my platforms because I want to have deeper conversations, more in-depth conversations that hopefully add more value into our lives. I want to ask her about the migrant crisis. I want to ask her about the Safety Act. I want to ask her about a lot of things, and I don't always agree with Kim Worthy, but I'm not always trying to just interview people that I agree with. So when you see me transition and you see me continue to grow and not just do the same thing over and over and over again, but it was a time for that to happen, and then now I'm continuing to evolve to where the platform needs for us to have deeper conversations, not just the thing that's entertaining to us. That's what you can expect. It's so funny that you asked that question, but I definitely want to get more insight and information. And so I'm tapping all of my resources. And when I run into these people, I'm setting up things that ultimately, hopefully, add value into your lives, and that provides more insight. So as we talk about the migrant crisis, apparently there's a new round of debit cards that's being issued for migrants over in New York. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's check it out.
Here's something we followed a lot. Cash grab for migrants. New York City officials dramatically expanding a controversial program which would give another round of prepaid debit cards to 7,300 migrants over the next 6 months, costing the city upwards of $2.6 million. Now, the program previously gave these cards to 3,000 migrants. Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services Ann Williams-Issam says the program allows newly arriving families the ability to, quote, buy from local shops, support small businesses, and manage their own resources.
Thank you, Ash.
When we empower people, we help them achieve self-sufficiency efficiency and access the American dream. Mayor Adams defending the program, claiming it's, quote, cost savings measure that temporarily replaces the Big Apple's existing system of providing non-perishable food boxes to migrant families staying in hotels and other city-funded shelters. The spending just goes on. And Cheryl, I got to tell you, I think it's interesting they're posting this as, an answer to the migrant crisis, yes, but a solution for small business. And just one note on the spending, $4.7 billion of migrant spending equals, which is what they're doing, 14% of salaries and wages for all city employees. So it's grown and grown and grown.
Right. So, Joe, you say that this is fundamentally unfair to the city's working poor who don't receive similar benefits from the city.
Yeah, I mean, no one else in the city who happens to be poor, whether you're born in a foreign country, whether you immigrated legally here, is getting this type of focus and service. I mean, it is hard for someone to get enrolled in Medicare, in welfare programs, food stamps, and things like that. It's not simple to do. And yet this population, 2 years ago, we decided to open the doors. And by the way, it is cost saving to give these people these cards now. That's not a falsehood. We just spent so many millions and billions, really, dollars in wasteful no-bid contracts where we just had these contracting companies open up hotels, provide them with every meal, every resources. This is how the cost went exponentially higher than anything we've ever seen before. You said $4.7 billion. That's more money spent on the migrant crisis next year than all of the fire trucks, all of the garbage trucks, all of the firefighters, the sanitation workers, the EMTs, all the people that make our city work. It costs less to run that than it does solve, quote unquote, solve this problem.
John.
So let me tell you how they pitch you, and let me break it down from a C student's perspective. Let me tell you how they pitch you and how to break it down from a C student's perspective, all right? They're pitching this two ways in order to be able to sell it to the voters. They're going to say, wait a minute, this is a cost savings. This actually helps the taxpayers, because it's costing us less to actually staff and feed, in addition to all of the money that we already spending on Medicare, sending them to our schools, housing. It saves us money, especially when it comes to the cost of food and all of this stuff and staffing and everything, by us just giving them debit cards. We're actually doing a better service to the citizens and the taxpayers of New York City by just giving them debit cards. Sounds good, right? We saving the city money. But in comparison to the year before and the year before that the costs were spiraling so out of control and so egregious because we had been spending an enormous amount of money to the tune of billions of dollars that we don't even know who these vendors are that got all of this money, to the tune of billions of dollars. So when they say that they're saving you money, is because it was so grossly overstated as far as the budget that they allocated to be able to just feed these migrants in the first place, that they're now saying, well, listen, we saving money as a result of what it is that we're cutting back from the previous year. But they're still spending more money than they're supposed to by opening up the borders and then allowing for these people to come into these places as sanctuary cities in the first place. So when they tell you this, it's not a lie, it's a white lie. That means that there's some truth in it so that they can justify the pitch to the voters and the taxpayers and justify them continuing, hopefully, to get reelected. But it's not the truth. They're not saving money in comparison to where they're supposed to be 4, 5, 6 years ago. They're saving money in relation to the amount of money that they were spending on a migrant crisis in the first place, labeling themselves as a sanctuary city. And so it's a white lie. That's what we call a white lie in the industry. It means I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of truth, but I'm going to omit the full truth so that you can get the full context and make a comparison as to whether or not we are doing what we're supposed to do as legislators and as people that are managing the government. And sanctuary cities and all of these liberal cities are still on fire. Still 100% on fire. But that's the way they're going to sell you. And then you're going to take the talking point and say, actually, you're going to go on another panel. You're going to go in somebody else's chat. Instead of getting the context and doing the research for yourself, you're going to go on and you're going to say, actually, they're saving money by giving out debit cards to all of these migrants. So you don't know what you're talking about. No, I do know what I'm talking about. I know the full context of why they're doing what they're doing. They're trying to remove responsibility of them not being in here in the first place But instead, they're going to say that they're saving money because that's always the pitch. We saving money, we saving money. In comparison to what? You know, I know people that have for a lifetime basically been on social services and getting some form of food stamps. Back in the day, they was getting the actual physical food stamp money that, looked like real money, and you would tear it out of the little booklet and then go to the store. And then now they use the actual cards, the little EBT cards. And they doing the same thing that they've been doing back in the day. You know what they've been doing? Selling it at a discount to ultimately get the cash and then be able to go out and do whatever it is that they want to do when they wanted to do it. They're not actually using it for the purpose of why they were supposed to be using it. They're leveraging it in order to continue to get the money, and they selling it at a discount. They created their whole economy behind it. I know business owners, literally people that came over here and then declared themselves citizens of the United States of America in one way, shape, or form or another, had children over here, right? And then ultimately they started their business. They would go on government assistance because you couldn't verify or document their income because they never worked for anybody. Technically, they worked for themselves. They would take their debit cards or take their EBT cards and they would get a whole lot of money because they would have a whole lot of children. Even if they had the children outside of the United States of America, they could say, hey, this is the amount of people that I got in my household. They would get allocated social services and monies, AKA taxpayer monies. They will open up their business, go over to Sam's Club, go over to Costco, go over to all of these suppliers, and then they would purchase the food that they ultimately sold inside of the restaurant to you, but they would get it at a discount, which means that they was able to compete much more effectively against other restaurants because they was able to cut the costs. They didn't have the same cost when it came to employees because they didn't have to pay anybody because they would work the jobs themselves. So they would give themselves a leg up by leveraging the federal government and your tax dollars against you and create businesses that ultimately was able to take you out because you couldn't compete when it comes to actually being a fair marketplace. And so when you see a lot of these people, you see these government bodies ultimately try to sell you on a narrative, I'm telling you that ultimately you are going to lose. Their job as legislators is supposed to be to give you the opportunity. That is what America is built on, or at least that's what America is supposed to be today. It's built on slave labor, but that's what it's supposed to be built on today. Is the opportunity for you to be able to succeed according to your own efforts in a fair marketplace. Doesn't mean that you were supposed to be all born with the same cards. You got a different set of cards than somebody else, but you're supposed to be able to leverage the marketplace. The marketplace is where everything is supposed to be fair game. It's like the internet. The internet made it available for us to be able to compete against these news stations. The internet made it available for us to be able to reach other customers without having to go through traditional entities that then tax us to death in order for us to be able to reach our target audience. It's supposed to be the great equalizer. No matter who you are, where you from, what color you at, you're supposed to have the opportunity, not get a leg up on somebody, but have the opportunity to be able to compete against other people that are in the same marketplace as you. But that's not what happens when you start to give handouts, because somebody else is going to be foregone, or somebody else is going to be at a disadvantage. White, black, Asian, whatever you are, somebody else is going to be at a disadvantage because they're able to leverage the system against you in a way that they're selling to the voters because the legislators sold you out. They didn't sell you in. They didn't bring you in. And so when I see this happening, I see the same thing happening. What happens to social services, what happened to Section 8, what happened to all of these. It's not a leg for you to be able to stand on in order to be able to get yourself together. It's a handout. That's it. It's just a handout.
I have something to add. You know, there are a number of op-ed pieces. There's some academics, some former Democratic Party officials that claim the reason why we have stronger than expected economic
Somebody
growth.
said Anton is saying the system is rigged. Nope, I'm not saying that the system is rigged, because you cannot have a job. You can go over there and create your own business. You can start your own restaurant. You can have a whole bunch of kids. And then you can also, on top of that, go and get social services and go and get some EBT cards. And then you can illegally go and use those cards to buy food that ultimately you can supply in your restaurant so you can sell them to the general public too. You can do the same thing. I'm advising you not to do it. See, listen, It's not the system itself that's the problem. It's the legislators that don't enforce the laws. They're doing something illegal. They're doing something illegal. But we're not closing off the gaps and cutting them off and addressing them and dealing with them accordingly. And so when you have people being able to break the law without any consequences, that's not the system. That's the people that you vote into office that's not prosecuting and not making sure that they press charges to the fullest extent of the law in order to prevent this from happening in the first place. It's not checks and balances. That's why you have layers of government. That's why you got a Congress, House of Representatives, a president. It's supposed to be layers for checks and balances in order to ensure that nobody steps out of bounds and that the laws are enforced.
Is because of illegal immigration. Well, they're right, but the reality is it's the government funding of the illegal immigration that's benefiting from the economy. That's the important point. It's not the migrants or whatever, it's government spending.
Well, there's a Wall Street Journal piece out that says blue states exodus continues, and it talks about New York behind California, that New York State has lost, lost income and lost funding and lost residents because of blue state policies.
And they're going to come to your city. They coming to Nashville. They coming to Texas. They coming to all of y'all cities because they're going to take whatever it is that they had and they're going to leverage and they're going to sell out and they're going to sell their home and they're going to take the money and they're going to gentrify your neighborhood. They're going to push you out and then it's going to be like Austin. Austin is just like baby California now. Anyways, neither here nor there. Let me read.